all right, but perfect timing though, so people didn't have to hear all of that stuff. So the information literacy training for today is going to be kind of in 3 parts. One is Amber is going to show you the content that should be, although I'm going to be double checking on the back end, so don't look just yet, should be in your Blackboard shell. I've got to go in and just triple check that everything moved over. Some of you it didn't, so I'm going to fix that while she's talking. So she's going to show you everything that's going on in the folder. And then you're going to show what was the second thing we were going to do? I've forgotten.
Well, we've got the Blackboard content and then the Google Drive content.
Okay. Yeah. Blackboard content, show you, oh, I know what it was. Blackboard content. She's also going to show you that all of those elements live in the Google Drive. So if there's anything you don't want to take, you want to hide the folder we give you and you just want to build it yourself, you can do that. And she's got it brilliantly laid out to do that. And then now I remember what it was. The last part, we're going to talk about how could you incorporate this into the class in terms of teaching? What are some strategies that if you wanted to introduce how, reliable information, things like that, how to do it. And certainly if you have done this before, especially for the newbies, feel free to share how you have kind of used the information literacy unit to do certain things. And I'll, for example, might share how I use it to build teams and get them to understand teamwork and how teams are going to disappoint them and they're going to be mad at their teammates. And that's that's part of the process. And then they kind of reflect on that. So I'm going to turn it over to Amber and feel free to jump in, take yourself off mute and ask questions, or I'll watch the chat, Amber, so that if something comes up, you can. So
yeah, right. I was going to say, I am going to do a share screen, so I won't have the chat readily available. So just unmute yourself and hop in at any point. I want this to be fairly informal. And the more questions y'all ask, the more I can really sort of provide a more detailed kind of presentation. So with that being said, let me reconfigure my setup here because I want to see all of your faces on my second screen. Because everybody's so happy, bright, and smiling and shining.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Let's see. Hang on. Does everybody see my Google Slides presentation? Because it's not showing me the green box like it normally does. Yes. Okay. Very good. Then it is showing the screen. I just don't have my green box. Go figure. So this is where we are. This is who we are. And I just want to quickly sort of situate this for y'all. The Association of College and Research Libraries is one of the major divisions of the American Library Association. And it's kind of the academic librarians, professional big deal. We do all of our things with, through, by, for, and about this association. And so they have created a framework for information literacy. There are 6 frames that operate within that. And it's all about, what kinds of skills are we building in our students to be able to help them use information wisely and correctly, and to help them be able to find that information. So in previous decades, gosh, it seems like I've been doing this forever, there used to be 5 standards. The standards were pretty static. They didn't have a lot of flexibility or room for a lot of change and wiggle room. So that's why the frames were kind of come up with. And so I didn't want to bore y'all to death, but I did want to sort of just situate this big picture and within the ACRL framework. We're going to focus on 2 of those frames. I don't expect y'all to get through all 6. That would be like a gargantuan, almost a semester long task. The 2 that we're going to focus on, the first one is authority is constructed and contextual, right? So this is getting students to understand who is writing their content, why are they writing it, what qualifies them to write this content, and to understand that, like, maybe because somebody has a PhD in, doesn't look like there's anybody from the College of Business in here, so I'll pick on accounting, right? So somebody might have a PhD in accounting, but if they are writing articles about why vaccines are bad, right? Yeah, they have a doctorate, but is that in the right field? Do they really have that that sort of authority to be speaking on that subject. And then the second frame that we're going to look at is information creation as a process, right? So helping students understand why you're not going to find any scholarly peer-reviewed sources about the FBI raid that happened, or the FBI search warrant that was executed at Mar-a-Lago last week, right? That like peer review is a process that takes a long time. And so we kind of walk them through this is what's happening immediately. This is what's happening 1 or 2 days after. This is the kind of information that you can get after a couple of weeks. Months later, that's when we hit that sort of peer review option. And then books take longer and that sort of stuff. So again, 2 frames that we're working with here, and we're going to work with those in the context of the radar evaluation method. So if you're not familiar with the radar evaluation method, it's basically examining a source for its rationale, its authority, its date, its accuracy, and its relevance. And there is an entire infographic and a whole video on that, so I'm not going to bore you to death with it, but just to kind of situate that and, you know, give us an overview of where we're going. All right, so Amy sort of already covered this, where you can find all of this content. Copy it into your Blackboard shell, probably, or within the shared Journeys to Success drive. There's a fall folder and there's an information literacy unit, and we'll take a look at how that appears and what that looks like toward the end of the presentation. As Amy said, we have worked really hard to try and make this plug and play. We used to have a couple of the librarians come to all of the classes, and I don't know why we thought that was a good idea, but it nearly ran us to death one semester. So we've sort of done this plug and play sort of approach. With that being said, if you absolutely think that your students will fall asleep while watching these videos, or if you think they won't do it, or if you just absolutely love librarians so much you need one of us to visit your class, we will absolutely visit your class. We just like this approach because it allows you to work it in whenever you need. And so it leaves you with kind of the ultimate flexibility. But I don't ever want to say that a librarian would not love to come and visit your class, because obviously I get paid to talk for a living and I love what I do. So if you want a real live demo, we can absolutely do that. It probably will take at least 2 class periods though. So if you're thinking about that, just plan accordingly, right? Okay. So I think of this as 2 mini units, right, for our deployment. So in your drive, in your Blackboard course shell, Amy has put the information literacy unit over here on the left-hand side, and you can drag and drop that into whatever portion you want. But I think of these first 2 folders as kind of one chunk, and then the second 2 folders as another chunk, okay? And so in the first folder, we have big picture questions for the students to be thinking about, to rumble with, right? And to be sort of rolling around in their head, thinking about all of these different things. We do have I won't say, this isn't really an academic journal level article. It is about 2 pages. So a 2-page article for them to read. This is a comic from the Oatmeal. If anybody likes Matthew Inman from the Oatmeal, there, I will go ahead and open it up because there is a clean version, which is what I have linked to. Classroom friendly version right here. This is what you're linking to. Regular version contains profanity. I will leave it up to you to decide what level your students are at. Can they handle that? Can they not? And you know, it's basically just trying to get them to think about assumptions that they've held, think about how they feel when something that they have believed for a very long time becomes challenged, and to get them to really sort of grapple with that. So, and then there are 2 additional videos. Now, with this, in the Google Drive, there are discussion questions that you can apply to each of these pieces of content. And and you may decide you want to assign all of this as homework. I did that last year and regretted it because none of them did anything with it. Came to class hoping that we would have an engaging discussion and was sorely disappointed. So we had to reconfigure that a little bit. You could do it in class, right? If you're really trying to work those discussion questions in, that may be the way that you want to go. And no specific one of these or any of these will affect the students' outcome on the assignments, right? These are just priming the students, getting them ready to think about it. They can complete the assignments without these, so, you know, use however you would like to. But this content should take, like this folder should take about 45 minutes of work for a student to get through, right? There is,
and Amber, I was going to say, we'll talk at the end about different strategies to use some of this stuff. So if you're interested, we'll play around with, okay, how, other than just assigning it, what else would we do? So we'll do that at the end.
Okay, so 4 units.
And again, I'm sorry, but you said the questions to this, it wouldn't be right here in this link, right? It's going to go, you have to go to Google Drive to find the discussion questions to this.
Right. Well, because we've kind of given you some talking points with it as well.
Okay.
So we don't want to put it where the students could see all of that, right?
Okay.
We've
Okay.
got
Yeah.
sort of bigger picture questions and some talking points related to that,
Okay.
just to help you as the instructor kind of work your way through that process.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we've covered why is reliable information important, and now we need, what's my next one? Nope. There we go, engaging with information. And so this is just straight videos and a comic. And so what I love about these, as I'm flipping madly back and forth, is particularly this middle one. No, I'm sorry, this last one, Kevin Arms, this is an actual librarian. And so I really kind of like his succinct, this is what information literacy is. This is what an information literate person will look like. This is what they can do. I do sort of feel like the online filter bubbles hopefully will cause some students to pause and think. And a really interesting in-class activity might be to have students Google something on their phone, like FBI Mar-a-Lago, right? And see what results they get and see if you have any differing opinions with it, or differing, I mean, obviously you have differing opinions, but you may give them like a real world example, right? And see, well, your first 3 sources were, you know, NPR, PBS NewsHour, and Google News, whereas your first 3 sources were CNN, The Atlantic, and Wall Street Journal, right? Or something like that, just to see, you know, what the difference is if they all Google the same thing, right? So, and if you're not familiar, the online filter bubbles is just talking about how algorithms are determining everything that goes in front of our faces. And if you want to have a great discussion about algorithms, that is all TikTok is, right? I saw something really hilarious on Facebook last night because I'm old and I use Facebook. But it was somebody saying, youth pastors are always saying that, you know, TikTok videos are just girls dancing in bathing suits. And it's like, it's an algorithm driven platform. So if that's all you're getting, like that's all you were looking for, it's just giving you more of what you, it's giving you more of what you have viewed, right? I mean, that's the whole TikTok point. And so it's just feeding you things that it knows you like, or things that it knows you have engaged with. I won't say knows you like, but knows that you have engaged with, right? So anyway, just, you know, always trying to connect this back to something real world applicable for the students, right? Like, why do I only get puppy videos on TikTok? Because man, am I a sucker for a cute fuzzy face. All right, and then this last comic that kind of runs into the sort of life cycle, I guess, or how the process of getting something published in a peer-reviewed journal. I like it because It's illustrated, which I think means students might be more likely to be drawn to it and to see it all the way to the end. And it's written by a woman, and most of our content, unfortunately, is created by white men. And so I've tried to find some balance in there where I can in terms of the content that we're including in the module. So again, they can do everything in the assignment without this, but I think this provides the best kind of framing for the content. And so then we jump into what I have created and what a librarian would do if they came to your class. The videos haven't really changed since last semester if you have taught this previously. And you can watch them at 1.5 times or 2 times speed if you like to hear my voice as a chipmunk. That is totally fine with me. They should also be captioned correctly. So usually when I turn on something and when I increase the speed, I also turn on the captions so that I'm more likely to retain the content that way. The infographics here, they should have these to reference as they're watching the videos. I can provide these to you as a PDF if you would like that, as opposed to they are just inserted here as a JPEG. Oh, I just now noticed I've got a little like extra thingamabob up here in the right hand corner. Just ignore that. I don't know where that came from. And this is that radar that I was talking about earlier. It's really trying to get students to interrogate their source, to look at it and say, you know, why were you published? What is trying to be accomplished here? When were you published? Date is really going to make a difference for some topics and not so much for others, right? And so all of these questions I walk through in the video, and these are also the questions that you are wanting the students to answer in the upcoming assignment. And we have a pretty straightforward laid out process for them to do that. And then Opposing Viewpoints is the database that we use for this assignment, mostly because it's pretty digestible for students, right? So it'll take current issues and try to give both sides of a particular argument. Sometimes with newer things, they don't have as much content. And so I have created a list of possible topics for the students that will be in the Blackboard folder. I would recommend students sticking to that list because I kind of went through all of them. Some just don't have as much content as others, and students might find it a little more difficult to have enough content. Like I am really waiting for the facial recognition technology topic to get more content in it, because I would love to use that and privacy as one of my search examples, right? And also how often facial recognition technology is wrong and how people have been actually convicted based on wrong facial recognition technology. Anyway, that's a side issue for me. But there are some topics in Opposing Viewpoints that work better than others. I've made a list of the ones that I think will work well for this assignment. There is a search box within Opposing Viewpoints. We encourage students not to use that, and I tell them that in the video. There is a listing A to Z of all the different topics available within Opposing Viewpoints. We encourage them to go there because it breaks it down very nicely. So let's say your topic is, well, let's use facial recognition technology, right? It's just not very robust yet, but they'll have viewpoints, they'll have academic journal articles, they'll have news content, they'll have magazines, they'll have any statistical information, and it's all kind of broken out and set up very nicely for the students. And I think it's fairly easy for them to not get, oh, hang on. You don't want them to get overwhelmed. I was gonna say, it's fairly easy for them to not get over, I almost did a double negative there, sorry about that. But it's easier for students to digest that way. So just something to think about there.
Hey, I have
Kristen,
something to add really quickly.
yes.
I would highly recommend, I had my students gonna watch it like on their own. They did not watch it because it's 28 minutes long. And I would highly recommend you have them watch it in class because that way they really know what to do. That's just my 2 cents. Learn from me.
I would agree. I would
Yeah,
agree.
I mean,
I
my
would-
students have to sit through me doing it live.
Yeah,
Right?
I would echo with Leila, because I show parts of it and then have them, walk through some steps. But I then tell them it's there if somebody misses a day, it's there. And then if you need to go back and refresh what we did, it's there as well. So, and again, if you don't want to do any of that and you want Amber or somebody in the library to come over and do it with the student, with your class or have your class go over there, you can do that as well. But just know that it's there for students who need a refresher if they don't watch it on their own.
It was convenient last year because, as I said, I did mine live, but I had a couple students miss, so you can just refer them back to that. And I'm sure, we haven't seen the end of COVID, so we're probably all going to have students out at some point this fall with various forms of sicknesses. All right, so the thing that is not in Blackboard is your scaffolded in-class activity, right? Because we don't want to just set them free and sink or swim, right? So this is the step before you give them the assignment, but after you know that they have watched the videos and engaged with the content, we've basically created a baby steps walks through the radar process for students. And so you can either work through this as a whole class together, or you can break them out into their teams. That's what I do. I put them in their groups that they're going to be working on the group project with, and I split them that way and have them work as individual groups, and then we come back and everybody discusses together. But particularly if you're running a little short on time, maybe you do this step as a whole class. But there isn't, what's the way I want to say this? They will be given an article to read. The last time I did this, I gave my class the article to read for homework. I'm not sure how many of them read it for homework, but I wanted to be able to start class the next day with the activity. There is an article attached to it, probably takes about 5 to 10 minutes to read. If the students haven't read the article, it is not a deal breaker. They can probably skim through the article and catch most of what they need, just depending on how you want to approach that. And it's basically just a breakdown step by step. It's giving them multiple choice questions using those radar evaluative criteria. And if I can quickly get to it, I will show it to you because I do think it is worth, nope. Here we go. Right, so it's a Google form I have created. This is in the folder. I would highly encourage you to make your own copy of this and move it into your own Google Drive because you will probably be interested in seeing all of their answers, and it will populate into its own form for you if you have made a copy for each of your classes, right? And so we just call it source exploration, asking them who's in their group. This is the link to the article. The link to the article is also in the discussion notes that I have for you. But if you look at identifying the citation and then determining the rationale, this is just straight in multiple choice format for them, what their assignment is going to be, right? So we just ask them a question, give them some options. We do sort of make them justify their answers to think about it, and they're working as a group, so hopefully they will be bouncing ideas off of each other and no one group will get specifically stuck. And so they'll work their way through this. I would say about 20 minutes, about 30 minutes if they haven't read the article, 20 minutes if they have. And then we ask them to determine, would you use this as a source for your paper? Why or why not? And don't worry if you are stressed about being able to walk through this on your own in class. I have that labeled as 6A, which we'll talk about here in a second. And 6B is just the discussion part for you, right? So I have gone through step by step, and with each question, I've given you the answers and talking points for each part of that. So, you may ask them, did they consider this? Or you may ask them, did you try Googling the author, right? Like there are just discussion points and questions you can ask as you go through. This should be pretty straightforward, right? So I'm telling you, this is what your answer should probably be. And then it's a little bit of discussion about that content as well. So that part obviously is not in Blackboard because we want students to engage with this during class. Is that clear as mud? All right, brilliant.
Amber, could you go back and show where that Google folder is? I know we're going to share it in a minute, but it is in, so just to see that it's in you should all have access to Journeys to Success.
Okay, wait, hang on, sorry. So go to your shared drives, ACAD 1300 Journeys to Success.
Yeah.
And then asterisk right up at the top, the asterisk fall 2022 course resources. And then information literacy unit is almost at the bottom. And then we were looking at 6A and 6B. So I've kind of numbered all of the files in the order that you would use them in the order, and also in the order that they are in Blackboard. And so if a step in the process has two parts, that's why we've got 6A is the student's activity and 6B is your answers and discussion questions, right? So that's where you can find it. And again, we'll come back at the end of class and make sure everybody knows how to get to this, because this will be the one part that is not in your Blackboard course shell. I'm doing a time check.
Yeah, I know you'll show it again, but basically what you're saying is that Google folder has everything that is in Blackboard and more because it has instructor guide stuff in it. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's exactly it.
Okay, just want to clarify that. I know you said it, but just
where am I at? We've gone through that, Here we go. All right, so assignments. What we have them do for the assignment is take two articles, a viewpoint and an academic journal, and we have them evaluate those according to the radar criteria. Additionally, for the viewpoint article, we actually have this year, this is a change. This is one of the bigger changes that we've done. So if you did this in the past, maybe light bulb moment right here. What we're having them do with the viewpoint article is to still fill out the radar evaluative questions, but we're having them take the actual article. And we chose the viewpoint for this because most of the viewpoint articles are only about 2 pages, maybe 3. And so take that viewpoint article and actually mark it up and show us, where did you find the date, for example, or where did you see the emotional language that's used within this, right? So we're asking them for each part of the radar criteria to tell us within the article exactly where did you find that. And I've got an example that I'll show y'all here in a second. It's got a full markup. And there are a lot of ways that students could choose to mark up a copy. They could print it, mark it up, scan it and submit it. They could print it, mark it up and take a picture and submit it. There are tons of online, image editing software sorts of things. Students are pretty resourceful. So, and I mean, if you wanted to, like, you could even accept a hard copy of the assignment. We're trying to make it a little more engaging for the student by having them do a little bit more. So they wouldn't just say, the author uses emotional language. They would have to circle the part or star it or heart it or whatever the corresponding icon is. I can't remember now. When the author cussed in the article, right? Because some of the articles will have a little bit of salty language as people get kind of riled up about stuff, right? So not just saying, yes, the author uses emotional language, but actually having them go to the article and annotate what part of the article is emotional language. Like, do you really know what that means? Because I kept getting students saying, the author uses ambiguous language, but then not have an example of that, right? So we're wanting them to say, well, if you think the author's being ambiguous, tell me in the article what part, right? Is it paragraph 9? Is it, you know, page 2, line 8 or whatever? And I've got an example of that I can show y'all as well. For the academic journal, same thing, fill out the radar criteria. But for the academic journal, we're having them consider and more deeply reflect on the questions, or I'm sorry, having them more deeply reflect on, would they use this article to support an academic research paper or project they're working on, and why? And getting them to give very specific examples, because we had more generic kind of reflection questions, and we got definitely these very vague, broad answers that didn't really let us know if the students meaningfully engaged with the content or not. And at this point, also, as they are doing that deeper reflection, we are asking them to consider what kind of possible thesis statement or argument or supporting statement they could make using their particular article that they found. Okay, so let me flip back into, did I exit out? I exited out of Blackboard.
Yeah.
Of course I
you did.
did. Dang it. Okay.
Okay, we can drive by it and after you're done with this and show those pieces.
Sure. So with those articles, your students, again, this is why I sort of encourage them to work in the groups for, the scaffolded activity, because once they start working as a group, they're going to choose the same topic for their radar assignment. So everybody in their group, if they have chosen facial recognition technology, everybody is going to be finding articles about that, or everybody's going to be finding articles about free speech on campus, right? Or everybody's going to be finding articles within one group about factory farming or something like that. What the students will then need to do as they think about that thesis statement with the academic journal article is for their group to come together and, hang on, I lost my train of thought.
Their group is going to come together and come up with a thesis that would be the kind of umbrella for all of their articles. That they're
Right. Okay. Yes. Sorry. Thank you. So an overarching thesis that would encompass all of their articles, so that they could incorporate that into their presentation. Because that's our sort of final thing, is the students get up and work together to present their academic journal articles that they have found. That's another slight switch. In the past, I think we left it up to the students. They could either present their viewpoint or their academic journal article. And this year we're making it be the academic journal article because that's more likely to have something you can really make a better thesis out of. And so what will happen is you'll have group presentations where students all get up. They will have sort of their own group slide with a group thesis. Then each student will present the key takeaways and main points of their particular article. And then at the end, the group will kind of summarize what they found and make sure they're highlighting, you know, how each of the articles supported that group thesis statement. And it might just be easier to show you what that looks like rather than to continue jabbering on about it, right? So we've given templates for the group project, and we're going to eventually have a model example with like topics and whatnot filled in. But so we need all the students, and somebody's going to forget to get all those names on the screen. So just remind them of that.
Adrian has a question. I don't know if it's.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, sir.
Oh, it's not really a question. It's kind of like a compliment of what you're saying. At the latter portion of the semester, what I did, I had the students, we left enough time in the semester before the end, and they formed the groups and they worked on them as a project, and they kind of vetted out each other's things. We did thesis in class. And so this part is very useful to me, and thanks for the update, because time's passing right out of time, but I use class time again to do the legwork, because they did forget to read or didn't read, but when they're all doing it, and I made a couple of them work from low stakes points to kind of help the process. So when we got to final, I think it was really good, but to walk them through it and have them kind of model it was very, very helpful for all of us and myself as well.
Excellent. And we love to see the students kind of holding each other accountable too, right? Like helping them kind of work through that process. Yeah, that's great. So they'll have a group thesis, and then each individual group member is going to talk about their article, right? So they'll provide the source citation. They don't need to read that part, obviously. Give us some summary points, and tell us, is this a good article? Is this not a good article? Interestingly enough, I have only ever had one student say, I took this article, I ran it through the radar evaluation criteria, and I thought it was not a good article. And they were absolutely right, because it was an article that was over 12 years old. Most of them think they found a good article, but this might actually be a great thing, as Adrian was saying, have them hold each other accountable on that. If they make sure, having them make sure everybody in their group has a good article. And then again, names on slides, so you know who to evaluate for what. So same thing for all the group members. And then at the end, we hop in on their key takeaways as a group. And again, we have them each include contributions to the slide on their takeaways, and encourage them / require them to put their names in parentheses so we can identify which part they did, so that when it comes time to evaluate, we can give the right credit. We do have some rubrics that we're currently putting some finishing touches on. And so we'll have a rubric for scoring the radar evaluation sheets, as well as for the group project.
And yeah, I was gonna say, they're just gonna be general ones that you could modify and use if you wanted to, however you want to do it, or you want to grade it yourself. And I just want to say, in interest of time, Amber, because we have about 15
We are
minutes.
at 1:45, yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to just remind them of how to get to this folder, and then show them, if you will show the actual Blackboard shell, I'll talk through some ideas on how to incorporate it into teaching, if that works.
Yep, can do. One thing for anybody who's new, this is just what the radar assignment looks like. We have them create a citation, and then we work them through that radar acronym. And then again, we have them work through the same thing for the academic journal. Let me hop back into Blackboard real quick.
And
Oh wait, I was going to show how to get to the drive.
Yeah, do it one more time if you don't mind, just
Yep.
because I know people will like, now where is it again?
Okay, so we're going to start at my home Google Drive. So as it waits, so shared drive on the left.
And don't forget, you have all kinds of fabulous information in your Journeys to Success. A
It is
treasure
true.
trove.
ACAD 1300 Journeys to Success. That's the top level shared drive. And then the subfolder is at the very top, because Amy's awesome and put it there, fall 2022.
And you can sort if you need to get it.
Also true. Whoops. I went one too many.
Yeah, you went in deep.
All right. So we're in ACAD 1300 fall 2022 course resources, and then information literacy unit.
So it's
And again, they're numbered in the order that you should need them. This very last file down here at the bottom is just the presentation that we were running through today. And as soon as we get a couple of things updated, we'll take out these asterisk things here at the top, and we'll put those, once we get them updated, we'll put them in their correct number order down below. So you should be able to start with one up at the top and just work your way down as you would need to find the content. And now I'm
again,
going to hop in the Blackboard
Yeah.
shell.
as you're doing that, I sent direct messages to 2 people in this group who need to just send me some information if people want to hop over to the chat, and if you have a message, if you don't mind responding, so I can make sure all your stuff's updated. So I just checked through everybody's course. Hopefully it's there. It should be there. If not, or you have trouble finding it, let me know. It probably came over for some of you as a folder on the menu. So I noticed that Amber went down to the menu and found Fall 2020 Information Literacy. It may also be at the very bottom of your online classroom. So look both places. If you can't find it, let me know for that. And this is what the folder looks like, right, Amber? Folders
Yes.
within folders.
Folders within folders. So yeah, mine is on the left-hand navigation side. And then you've got,
And you can move it around. You don't have to keep it there.
yeah, absolutely. The one thing I will kind of come back to, under assignments, we have a model for them to view, right? So this is what we want them to see, what a successful markup looks like, right? We want them to see what a successful citation looks like, how they can work their way through answering those radar questions, and then a reflection as well as a thesis down here at the bottom, right? So hopefully students can walk step by step through that. I will also say I linked to the radar worksheets as well as the group slide template. I made them Google Docs or Google Slides, and if they click on the link, it should force them to create their own copy of either the document or the slides. That way, if we happen to need to make an update to something, like if I find a glaring typo or error or something like that, I can just go in and update that Google slide or update the doc instead of emailing everybody and being like, hey, this word got left out of a sentence or something like that. So we can just have a more up-to-date assignment version out there. Also, I've noticed that a lot of them, even if I give them a Word doc, they're still working on it in Google Docs, right? So they'll just automatically have the Google Doc, automatically have the Google Slides. So that's just available for them. And then there is an information literacy quiz. You can change the point values, but it's basically asking them questions based on sources. So it'll give them a specific source. So it'll ask them to review the article. That's just linking to an article in one of our databases and asking them, you know, based on everything we've covered, what kind of source do you think this is? And that's the first 3 questions, right? So it's a, have you really gotten the things we've been going over? And this is more like, this is a little lower level Bloom's, right? It's a little more remember, understand sort of level. And then we ask them to apply as we get working our way up that Bloom's level, asking them, okay, here's an article. Would you use this or would you not? For questions 4 and 5. And so hopefully they get all of those. Most of my students did fine with this last year, but sometimes if they're going to miss one, it's usually 4 or 5, and more of them missed 5, which the article linking in number 5 is like an article about I think it's medical marijuana from 1992, right? And the instructions clearly is like current legislation regarding marijuana. So something that's probably older than they are. If they are thinking that's a good source, then they've missed the point.
So
They missed
Amber,
the point
since we
entirely.
have just a little bit of time left, do you mind going back to those folders, the list of folders, and just we could talk through, and then want to give a little bit of time for questions. I have a drop-in on Friday from 9 to 11. Come and go as you please. If you have specific questions or want to go through this stuff again, we can do that. I'm sorry, go to Blackboard. Go to Blackboard folders.
My bad.
No, I wasn't clear. So some of you may go, okay, there's a lot of information. Why is information reliable, or why is reliable information important, and how do you engage? I am going to suggest, if you do cover that or get students to cover, it's great information. It's really good information, that perhaps maybe assigning groups different pieces of it and having them review the information, kind of going back to what Leela says, they don't watch this stuff. They don't watch it, they don't do it unless it's tied specifically to an assignment. They're just not going to, you know that. But if you said, okay, I need groups 1 and 2 to get up and present what they learned from these videos, or in group 3 and 4 to present on what they learned about information bubbles and algorithms, or, you know, that could be another way of getting them to touch this stuff, practice the skills of reading, summarizing, sharing, you know, and they can do it informally. They don't have to put together a slide presentation. So if you do want to incorporate it in some way and you're like, I don't want to lecture on this, which I would encourage you not to do, having them actively engaged in reading the material themselves and then sharing out with the larger group might be a helpful idea. Other thoughts, especially from you seasoned people, how you've used this content or any of the content before? Anybody want to share? Share what didn't work? Scott, I'm sure you have a thought on what worked and what didn't.
I've used it different ways. One, I had to use it this semester, actually this summer for. So Amber, I thank you for having all the stuff there. Is we had a group project internally we had to go to for the national conference and couldn't be in class that couple days. And so it was nice to have a well-prepared, even though it probably didn't go as smoothly as it has in other classes, to be able to say, hey, I need you to do this folder on your own, because everything was watch the videos, watch this, instead of coming to class for these 2 days. And it worked, and they were able to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of them on the back end, we had to hold their hand a little bit, but
Yeah.
So, and it gives them something different to hear than just our voice for a semester.
Like I think Leela said, you can show them in class and talk through, or you know, show parts of them in class and talk through. Leela, were you going to say something?
I was just gonna say that I would, on the radar assignment, if you can break them in groups, it does help through each step and make them kind of work a little bit, present a little bit, because if you don't, some will just do nothing. And so it really does help those that are struggling. Maybe they don't know what to do. It kind of helps. So that's it. I seem to have more response that way.
And Leela and Scott and Adrian and even Jenny, do y'all, and Jennifer and Becky, sorry. Now I can see y'all coming in. How many class periods do y'all normally devote, and do you feel like it's enough?
I usually end up doing this for 2 weeks because it takes me forever. I mean, honestly, it takes me a longer time to get through it. But I learned last year, like, I think it was Scott who said, or no, Amber, you said this, like, I tried last year to shorten it a little bit and do more outside of class, but I found like they were not watching anything. They weren't. And so it takes me a little bit longer, but I just kind of rearranged some things to make it work.
Yeah.
I do think you can in your Blackboard. I haven't done this, but I thought about doing it, was going to play with it this semester, is assigning the videos a point total and making them an assignment. They completed it by watching it. I know there's ways of doing that in Blackboard, and I thought about doing that. One, just to give a way of sneaking in some bonus points. You watched a video, cool, here's 5 points, but also force them to do it because it's now 4 points.
Yeah. And, you know, to Jenny's point too, I don't know how you do this in under 2 weeks. And if you end up needing to take a little more time, I just do it as a unit on, this is what group work is like. We're going to focus on an academic skill, which is information literacy or set of skills. And we're going to learn how to work in a group. So it's both helping them develop an academic skill and how to do some processes, but also how to work with each other. And Jenny, I think, you know, you kind of pointed out, you know, giving them a little bit of time to do actually that work in class together. Leela did too, you know, so they're working together on the radar, knowing that it's not due for a few more days, but they're getting that time. I kind of have gone back and forth. I'm like, it's college, they should do group work outside of class, but they don't. They can't. It's a monumental, you know, task, and maybe saying, okay, we'll do a little bit of this in class together. You're going to have to figure out a way to then finish this up, you know, so that's not so balanced.
Yeah, I mean, and Google Slides is kind of good for that outside of class stuff, right? Mine definitely takes 2 weeks, and I know I've talked a lot today, and I'm sorry, but I do try to give them like one whole class period together to work, whether that's half and half, right? So I split that class, that work together time, split it up between 2 classes. And there are parts that they can do asynchronously, but as a group, right? But they do need to be together to be thinking about that group thesis, right? So.
Do any of y'all use the groups built in Blackboard? I've been using it recently. So they have like, I create the groups, put the kids in a group and call it group A, group B, group C, and then they can use their own discussion board, file exchange and all that. I started doing that during the COVID semester where that way they had their own little place in Blackboard. And I said, look, this isn't the only way you can use it. I really don't care what system, GroupMe,
Right.
cell phones, whatever, but I'm going to provide you access to this thing in class. And then you guys can email each other and share files all through Blackboard in your group as a thing.
No, that's great, Scott. I appreciate you sharing that. We can, if you come to the, you know, how to do the Blackboard shell for the generic stuff, we can play around with that if anybody wants to do that. But you might be surprised that they are connected completely to their phone, and they do not know how to always use it for good. And when you say you do not have to meet synchronously outside of class, get a Google slide, put notes in it, drop your stuff in. You would have thought we asked them to rocket to the moon sometimes. And I thought, you know, so a little bit of instruction or some support like Scott has is definitely good. We are right at time, and so I want to be protective of that. Those of you that we've just blown your head off because you're brand new, don't worry. You know, we're going to come back to this, and we can come back with the newbies in a few weeks and do this again, or at least go more in depth once you've kind of wrapped your head around it. Probably don't want to schedule this till around midterm. So get them acclimated, go through the first few chapters, maybe give them a test on academic strategies, and then present this. And so that should give you some time to think ahead and maybe come back together for those that need it to plan that time. So
Yeah, I'm gonna put my cell number in the chat. You can email me, obviously, but if you need to get a hold of me quickly because something isn't working in your shell, or you know, you really have a burning question about one of the videos, you can call or text. If you're gonna call me and I don't have your number, and it looks like I don't have most people's number here, text me first and be like, hey, this is Layla, I'm about to call you with a question. That way I'll just know to answer the phone, because I generally don't answer otherwise. But I'm here if y'all need me. Of course, Amy's here for like all of the grandmaster wizardry sort of things, but I'm here for the information literacy stuff if you need me. And again, a librarian would be happy to come to your class. We just can't make it to all the classes. And we wanted this to be as flexible as possible for y'all so that you can implement what works for you and your students, because that's the most important part, is what they get out of this.
And now I'm going to call out Adrian and Scott because I sent them direct messages. Oh, Scott just responded. Adrian has not, but you can email me answers. Thank you, Scott. I
Okay.
appreciate it. Just Scott, the whole course from last fall or 2020? Last fall. Okay. 2021. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Those that want to do some more training, it's throughout the week, and then there's just drop in on Friday. No agenda at all. All right. Happy planning.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you.